NBA play-in. It's going down tonight. Who's going to win? Who's going back home? Find out in the next edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. And welcome back to another installment of Sideline Sports Podcast. Once again, I am Alex Naveja, the host of Sideline Sports Podcast via Sideline Sports Media. If you're not on the sideline, it's not a Sideline Sports Podcast, a source of your SoCal sports news. On my left-hand side, a great friend for all you longtime Sideline Sports Podcast supporters of Dan Besbris. He goes by the name of Rhett Bauer from Sports Ethos himself. Rhett, how's it going? Pleasure to have you on the show here today.
Yeah, Alex, glad we could make this work. I know I made it a little bit difficult for you, but I'm really excited to talk about some play-in games and just the playoffs in general.
And you know what Dan said? That you're an NBA genius. So, I mean,
Dan, it was embellishing. I don't know about all of that. But no.
Hey, you know what? You guys can definitely follow Rhett on his Twitter account. I'll put that down below. And while you're down there below, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. It'll really help us out. Hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell so you guys know when we put up episodes every week from Center Lock, from Sideline Sports Podcast, and from Football Liando. So let's go straight into the business. The first one here on the slate here tonight is a nice little Eastern Conference matchup between the Hawks and the Heat. I mean, you got two superstars fighting at it in Jimmy Butler and in Trae Young. I mean, this one you would think is like all Heat, but you got to think that there's going to be some fight there with Atlanta, right?
Yeah, I go back and forth. I don't have very much faith in the Hawks at all. It seems like they've been really dysfunctional despite having like generally most of their players. But the Heat also haven't inspired any confidence, so I don't really know what to do with that. But in this matchup, I am going to take the Heat because Spo is a genius. Jimmy Butler in a winner-take-all is terrifying, and I think that the Heat will be able to stop the Hawks more than the Hawks will be able to stop the Heat, and that does factor in the massive difference between their offensive pedigree for both of them. So I know Quinn Snyder is an excellent head coach, but having been there for only so long, I don't think that Trae is going to trust his teammates enough to get off the ball and make the Heat's game plan go up in flames by trying to have somebody else on the Hawks beat them other than Trae Young.
And I just feel like the Heat have so many weapons on their team too. And I mean, I just don't see Atlanta really putting a true stop to them anyways. I mean, Kyle Lowry is such a big one, and you've got such a young crowd around Jimmy Butler, the young core around him. I don't see Atlanta really even putting a stop to them, really.
Yeah, and it's one thing because it's interesting that the Heat have been starting Gabe Vincent, Tyler Hero, Max Strus, Jimmy, and Bam. But Atlanta can't really take advantage of Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, and Tyler Hero like that. Like, not enough to offset what Jimmy is going to do to Trae on the other end. Like, they're just going to keep setting screens and keep switching until they get the matchup that they want. Jimmy's going to go to work. And that's not even factoring in Bam as a hub and taking advantage of getting Capella away from the rim. So I think the Heat should win pretty comfortably, but if the Hawks pour in enough threes, like I said, if Trae Young is able to dish and DeJounte can take advantage of the 4-on-3 or 4-on-4 with shooters in the corners, then I guess the Hawks have a chance, but I'm not betting on that for sure.
Okay, so I think you and I are both on the same page as far as the Heat advancing on that one. Let's see if we'll be on the same slate on the next matchup going down tonight with Lakers and the T-Wolves. I mean, with the T-Wolves going into this one shorthanded, I mean, it's an easy guess that it's going to be the Lake Show going to be advancing and playing against the Grizz for sure.
Yes, exactly right. I'm a huge Jaden McDaniels fan. You can kind of see the bottom of his jersey right up here at the top of my screen. So him punching a wall and breaking his hand and being out for the season, however long the Timberwolves season lasts, is obviously a huge blow. And without him, Taurean Prince and Kyle Anderson just do not have enough to stop LeBron and Towns against AD. I saw something about AD struggling against Towns other than this most recent matchup, and I just do not think that that's going to play out in this single game elimination. I see the Lakers moving on pretty comfortably, even though Anthony Edwards is a certified stud in my eyes.
I mean, I think I would have to agree with you too. I mean, the Lakers they are playing red hot basketball right now. Despite them losing on short rest against the Clippers, they were able to play just instant night and day difference against the Jazz. You saw a complete different Lakers team, much more well rested, making more decision making. You didn't see them make too many mental mistakes in their last game on Sunday. And I don't see the T-Wolves having enough to really be able to keep up with the Lakers. And I mean, especially with being short of Rudy Gobert, not having their big time monster to keep up with AD down low. I just see the Lakers attacking too much in the paint. You know how good of an attack and transition type of team the Lakers are. They're a very quick, fast break team, even though they kind of have more of that veteran presence. I don't see the T-Wolves having any shot against the Lake Show for sure.
Yeah, the Gobert suspension, that whole situation is just hilarious. I've never liked Rudy Gobert. I think he's just supremely overrated. Somebody was arguing with me last year that he's like a top 10 offensive player in the NBA because of his screen setting and his vertical threat. Absolutely no chance. But the thing about him being out is now you're going to have Karl-Anthony Towns in the action. Like if it's a LeBron AD pick and roll, you're either going to have AD switch onto LeBron or you're going to have Cat switching on a LeBron, or you're going to have Cat in a drop. And I just do not see that going well at all for the Timberwolves. And I think that that's going to be the go-to. Plus, you got a Jared Vanderbilt, D'Angelo Russell revenge game. So looking forward to that as well.
Love to see it for sure. Now, I want to ask you and get your opinion on this. So the T-Wolves are in a must-win game play-in right now. Don't you think it's a little strange that the T-Wolves would even want to suspend Rudy Gobert right now? Wouldn't you just be like, you know what, let's put this aside because we need him right now to keep up because we really need our hands on deck to beat the Lakers?
Yeah, I'd be curious what they would have done if Jaden hadn't broken his hand, because I think with him being out this whole time, they don't have a chance no matter who they play. So like, even if they did beat the Lakers and they get in as the 7th seed, they're not beating Memphis. Like anything can happen in a single game play in, but you're just not going to beat a good team that has a lot of their good players in a 7-game series without your premier perimeter defender, your only real perimeter defender outside of Anthony Edwards, who does well. So I think that the Timberwolves are kind of making a statement. And I would imagine that there's been enough going on internally that hasn't really gotten out with the team and all of that, with Rudy and whatever else is going on. I think the overflow from the bench skirmish into the locker room at halftime, continuing on, I think that kind of solidified it for me. Is like, you can swing on a teammate, but if you keep coming back at them in the locker room after however long of being back there and having a chance to cool off, but keep going at it, you just can't. I don't think you can really let that slide as an NBA organization, even if it does put a premature end to your season.
I think I would have to agree with that too. I mean, there's repercussions for everything that you do, and especially in an NBA organization like that. And I mean, I think the whole organization already knew, well, with McDaniel's not even going to be playing against the Lakers, then I think we really do have to take repercussions. So it does make sense as far as that case is concerned. But now for tomorrow's game, the first one on the docket is Bulls Raptors. That one, I think that's going to be a pretty fun one. And if you ask me, that might be one of the more exciting matchups to be watching in the play-in.
Yeah, the bar is pretty low for me as far as exciting matchups in the play-in goes, but it should be a good one. I just don't, again, I don't know how much it's going to matter against the Celtics. I think I want to see the Raptors play the Celtics more than the Bulls, so that's kind of what I'm rooting for. But if the Bulls can score, they might just make it happen. because I'm not sure if the Raptors will be able to keep up with the Bulls if they are firing on all cylinders. And, Levine gets going, DeMar can get to his spots, Vooch can hit trail threes, and guys like Caruso, Pat Will can find their spaces as well. I'm not optimistic about that because it just doesn't seem like they will. The Raptors just have so many limbs everywhere. They just got arms all over the place on defense, and I think they're going to slow them down enough to be able to beat them. And then it's going to likely end up being Bulls Hawks in the for the 8th seed, and that's going to be an interesting one too, I think.
Okay, yeah. So do you think Chicago, do they have enough to be able to push or even stand a chance against the Raptors here?
I think they do, but I'm not optimistic about it. I just don't think they will have all of their guys scoring to the level they need to in order to get over the Raptors defense. And then on the other end, the Raptors offense is obviously a bit of a slog, but the Bulls don't have a ton of great defenders to be able to really lock in on that end either. So I'm still taking the Raptors, but it should be a relatively close game, like you were saying.
Okay. I mean, I think it'll probably be the Raptors taking it too, just as far as what they are able to offer to the table and just the way they play the game is going to be a
Yeah.
big time question mark, and see what if the Bulls are going to have enough to be able to hang with the Raptors in that one. So the last game that we have is another Western Conference matchup in the Thunder and the Pelicans here. And I mean, what are your thoughts going into this one? I mean, the Pelicans in the last day on Sunday, they were hoping to win their game and they were hoping that the Lakers were going to lose theirs so they could kind of do the little swap right there and to be able to try to, hey, you know what? Let's play at home instead of playing on the road type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Pelicans are going to take it. The Thunder are an exciting team. They've been awesome this year. I love J-Dub. I was hyping him up all of last year, even when the pre-draft process was going on. It's like, oh, he might be in the 20s. Like, nah, that dude's definitely a lottery pick. And Shea's obviously been incredible, but I don't think they have the experience to deal with just like guys like Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and guys like that. But then they also don't have the size to deal with J-Val, which I think is going to be a huge, huge mismatch early that they should feed to really get all of the Thunder's big man room in trouble, because I just don't think they can guard him straight up. But I also feel a lot more confident in the Pelicans defense against guys like Shea and J-Dub than I do about the Thunder's defense against guys like Ingram, McCollum, Murphy, and just all of the guys like that. So I think it should be Pelicans, but I'm excited to watch it.
And I mean, they have that advantage of being there at home and they have a pretty great team to be playing there at home as well. But I mean, I think it ultimately comes down to New Orleans having to take care of the paint and not allowing the OKC big to be able to get to work. And, it attracts a lot of attention inside of the paint. And when it does attract a lot of attention in the paint, then you're able to swing it down behind the perimeter. And that creates 3-point shot opportunities. And that can create some massive headaches there for New Orleans too, you would think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you can stop Shea from getting into the paint. He just moves at his own cadence in a way that's just, it's so unique and so fun to watch. And it seems like it's unstoppable, even for some of the best perimeter defenders, which Herb Jones definitely is. But I do think that if the Thunder can if Shea can get into his spots, get into the little floater range and finish there, then the Pelicans will have to react for it, and they'll have to start collapsing more. Then it comes down to the shooters like Dort and JRE and guys like Aaron Wiggins and players like that just to really hit shots. But it's the fact that they are going to be relying on guys like Aaron Wiggins and Jeremiah Robinson early hit shots that has me a little bit feeling like the Pelicans are just going to pull it out just because they aren't relying on so many young players to step up.
Right. You kind of need more of the bigger players to step up, more of the guys with more experience, with more of a veteran presence, as you will. And I think OKC is still a really young team as opposed to New Orleans. They've got a couple of veterans on their team already. I mean, you've got a lot of the former young Laker players there with New Orleans there, and they already know how to play in the playoffs. They've been around big veterans like LeBron James, like the Kobe Bryants, and they already know more or less what to expect on a playoff atmosphere. But to finish off the show here, Rhett, what is the game that you're looking forward to here in the next 2 days, or even the next 3 days for that 8 seed game?
I think I'm gonna watch Hawks Heat the closest of any of them because I think that the Heat, I want to watch how they play because we talk so much throughout the regular season. It's like, oh, there's teams that can just turn it on, and I think the Heat are one of those teams, but they also have some glaring flaws that I want to see in a do or die situation to see how that plays out. But then as far as the eight for the game for the 8 seed. So if we assume the Lakers are moving on and we assume the Pelicans are moving on, Timberwolves Thunder is just going to be so exciting because the vibes there are just so different because the Thunder are just happy to be there. They're excited. They're all over each other's backs in a good way. They're like supporting each other, and the Timberwolves are on each other's backs in a different way that is obviously ended in a couple punches being thrown at a wall and at a person to close out the season. But if Rudy Gobert comes back for that game, then playing double bigs against the Thunder could be a recipe for success. And then the Timberwolves could go into a matchup with Denver. That would be pretty fun. So I think that's the game that I'm looking for the most for the 8 seed would be Wolves Thunder, assuming that plays out. It's probably just the Western Conference game in general, regardless of who ends up winning the first 2 games to see who gets that 8 seed. Cause I think Denver it's not as much of a lock as Milwaukee and Boston, I think. So it'll be really interesting to see what these teams show in a do or die game. You see if there's any wrinkles that might be able to apply to a team like Denver should they end up getting there.
So I know I said that was my last question, but now this one really is the last question. So who do you see playing Milwaukee and Celtics for the Eastern Conference? And then who do you see playing against Denver and playing against gosh, I'm blanking out on the
Memphis.
Memphis.
Yeah.
Who do you see them playing?
Yeah, so I see the Heat playing the Celtics, and then I believe it will be the Raptors playing the Bucks, right? Because that would be 7 and then 8. Yeah. So I think the Heat end up winning, and then I think the Hawks actually end up losing to the Raptors as well. I just do not believe in the Hawks. I think they're going to be one of the most active teams in the league this summer, despite being one of the most active teams in the league last summer. And then over in the West, like we said, I think the Lakers end up beating the Timberwolves, so they will play Memphis. And then I think the Pelicans can take the Wolves. And I think that's the matchup I would want to see against Denver. Just because I think that would just be such an offensive show to see guys like Ingram and CJ McCollum go up against guys like Jokic and Jamal Murray with Trey Murphy, Michael Porter Jr. There's just a bunch of parallels there that I think would be fun. And I'm kind of rooting for chaos this offseason, and I think the Timberwolves not making the playoffs, the Hawks not making the playoffs, the Bulls not making the playoffs. That would just be the perfect scenario for all of those teams to do some crazy things this offseason. And I think it would actually lead to the best playoff matchups too. So that is kind of what I'm rooting for.
Well, there you have it, folks. We had the play-in predictions. We talked about who will be moving on to the playoffs and who will be playing against these 1 and 2 seed teams and what's to come here. We'll leave it at that as far as the play-in tournament predictions. You guys can always catch a future episode, possibly, and NBA playoff predictions and what that's going to look like next week. We're going to talk about the NHL playoffs with the Kings making it to the playoffs and see what kind of run they're going to have. As far as the guest is concerned, can't spoil that one. But that's all the time we have left here on Sideline Sports Podcast. We thank you all so much for tuning into this one. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below your predictions. I'd love to hear about who you guys think are going to be advancing, who's going to go to the eighth seed game, who's going to be playing against the Bucks, Celtics, Grizzlies, or even the Nuggets. And of course, hit the subscribe button down below, notification bell as well, so you guys know when we will be uploading episodes. Once again, on my left-hand side, that was Rhett Bauer from Sports Ethos. He is the NBA guru himself. He knows everything NBA. Don't doubt him. Don't question him. And if you guys like his takes, follow him on Twitter as well. I'll put his Twitter handle down below so you guys can stay up to date with what he's got going on with Sports Ethos and with all of his NBA takes. And once again, Rhett, thank you so much for joining us here today and talking all about the NBA play-in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate that, Alex. This is a great time.
Well, it was a pleasure to have you here on the show. Once again, I'm Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast via Sideline Sports Media, saying if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, the source of your SoCal sports news. Have a good one, everybody, and enjoy the NBA playoffs.